Following the clues of her father's secrets, a girl discovers something unimaginable, a truth that makes her family's ground tremble. At home, when confronting him, she exposes the mystery without realizing that her mother, hidden behind the curtain, heard every word. Stella stared at the living room window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. Her gaze seemed distant, lost in thoughts that had been bothering her for weeks. The clock on the wall showed 8:30 at night, and once again Benjamin was not home at the usual time. With a heavy sigh, she got up from the sofa and walked to the kitchen. The dinner she had prepared with such care was already cooling on the stove. While she absent-mindedly stirred the pot, she heard footsteps coming from the hallway. "Mum!" The voice of Jade, her 15-year-old daughter, echoed through the house. "Dad isn't home yet." Stella forced a smile as she turned to the teenager. Jade was the living image of her father, the same expressive brown eyes and the easy smile. "Not yet, dear. He must be stuck in traffic because of the rain." Jade frowned, looking worried. "Again? He's been getting home late almost every day in the past few weeks." "I know," Stella replied, trying to conceal the uneasiness in her voice. "His work has been quite demanding lately." The two sat at the kitchen table, eating in a silence filled with tension. Stella couldn't stop thinking about the evasive excuses Benjamin had been giving for his frequent delays. Sometimes it was the traffic, other times it was a last-minute meeting with his boss. Something wasn't right, and she felt it deep in her heart. It was already past 10 at night when they finally heard the sound of the key turning in the lock. Benjamin entered, looking exhausted. His clothes were wrinkled, and there were deep circles under his eyes. "Sorry for the delay," he murmured, avoiding his wife's questioning look. The day was crazy at the office. Stella felt a twinge of hurt and irritation. "Benjamin, this is the third time just this week that you're arriving after 10. What's going on?" He sighed, running a hand through his greying hair. "Nothing much, dear. Just a lot of accumulated work. You know how it is at the end of the month." But Stella was not convinced. She watched her husband walk away toward the bathroom, feeling that there was something more behind those vague excuses. In the days that followed, Stella's suspicion only grew. Benjamin seemed increasingly distant and tired. The conversations between the couple, once so lively, now were reduced to monosyllables and evasive answers. One afternoon, while folding clothes in the bedroom, Stella had an idea. She called Jade, who studied in the same area where her father's office was located. "Sweetie, I need to ask you a favour," she began hesitantly. "I know it's not right, but I'm worried about your father. Could you maybe check at his work's end today? See if he's really staying late at the office?" Jade seemed surprised by the request. "Mum, do you think Dad is lying?" Stella sighed. "I don't know, dear. I just want to understand what's going on. He's been acting so strange lately." Reluctantly, Jade agreed. That afternoon, she positioned herself discreetly near the building where her father worked. At exactly 5 in the afternoon, which was his usual leaving time, she saw Benjamin leaving the place. Intrigued, she noticed that he didn't take the company bus as usual. Driven by curiosity, Jade decided to follow him. She kept a safe distance as her father walked a few blocks until he reached a large warehouse. To her surprise, she saw Benjamin enter the place and, minutes later, come out wearing a work uniform. Jade's heart raced when she realized that her father was starting to unload a truck, as if he were in another job. Confused and worried, she approached him. "Dad," she called softly. Benjamin turned, paling when he saw his daughter. "Jade, what are you doing here?" I saw you leaving the office and got curious," she admitted, embarrassed. "Dad, what's going on? Why are you working here?" The man seemed to wither before his daughter's eyes. For the first time, Jade saw him truly vulnerable, the lines of fatigue on his face more evident than ever. "Please, don't tell your mother," Benjamin pleaded, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm doing this to help with the household expenses. We have some debts that your mother doesn't know about, and I didn't want to worry her." Jade felt her heart tighten. "But Dad, why don't you talk to her? I'm sure Mum would understand." Benjamin shook his head, a sad smile on his lips. "Your mother is a wonderful woman, but sometimes she can be a bit impatient. I don't want her to worry or feel guilty. I'll handle this, I promise." Reluctantly, Jade promised to keep her father's secret. On the way back home, she felt torn between loyalty to her father and concern for her mother. When she arrived, Stella was waiting anxiously in the living room. "So, daughter, did you find out anything?" Jade hesitated, remembering the promise she made to her father. "I didn't see anything strange," she lied, avoiding her mother's gaze. "Maybe he's just really busy." Stella frowned, sensing that something was off in her daughter's demeanour. She decided she needed to investigate further. That night, when Benjamin arrived, Stella pretended to be in the bath. In fact, she hid behind the living room curtain, listening to the conversation between father and daughter. "Dad," Jade began hesitantly, "why do you keep going to that warehouse every day? When will you tell Mum?" Stella felt a chill run down her spine. She heard her husband sigh deeply before replying in a low voice. "Please don't tell your mother about my second job. She's so impatient, she doesn't listen to me. I'm trying to pay all the bills and solve the debts she doesn't even imagine." Benjamin's words were like mirrors reflecting a past that Stella so avoided confronting. She remembered how, in her childhood, her controlling mother dictated every aspect of family life, stifling any attempt at freedom or spontaneity. The tense moments between her mother and father, the uncomfortable silence that hovered on the more difficult days, all of this resurfaced in her mind as if they were old acquaintances returning to demand a toll. "Have I become just like her?" Stella questioned herself, feeling a tightness in her chest. She had made promises to herself, promises to never follow the same path, to be different. Yet, there she was, living the reflection of a family dynamic she always wanted to change. It was almost like an involuntary inheritance, and the weight of guilt kept her awake, her thoughts swirling in circles. In the days that followed, Stella began to observe Benjamin in silence. It didn't take much to notice what once seemed imperceptible: the signs of exhaustion, the deeper dark circles under his eyes, the restless look. In her pride, she still couldn't open her heart, but she found discreet ways to get closer. The small gestures, a carefully prepared coffee, an encouraging note slipped into his suit pocket, the simplicity of a "how was your day" without any demands. And even amidst resistance, an imperceptible change began to occur. With each attempt, however small, she felt that little by little she was able to pull him back close. There was still much to say, but for the first time, Stella felt it might be possible to choose a different path, that the family destiny didn't have to be inevitable. A week after this discovery, with Stella's small gestures, something seemed to change in Benjamin. It was as if little by little he felt more secure, as if that barrier between them was finally dissolving. That night, as she offered him tea, she saw hesitation in his eyes, followed by a kind of contained relief. He accepted the cup and sat beside her on the sofa, letting the silence fill the space for a moment. "Ben," she began, her voice trembling. I know about your second job." He froze, his eyes wide in a mix of surprise and apprehension. He tried to stammer an explanation, but Stella interrupted him, gently placing her hand over his. "You don't need to explain," she said with a tone of understanding and sadness. "I heard the conversation with Jade the other day, and I want to ask for your forgiveness." Benjamin frowned, clearly confused. "Pardon? For what?" She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with held-back tears. "For being so controlling and impatient, for spending so much without considering our finances, and most importantly, for making you feel like you couldn't trust me to share your problems and concerns." For a moment, Benjamin's expression softened. He looked relieved, as if he finally had permission to let the weight fall from his shoulders. The couple spent the following hours in an open and emotional conversation. Benjamin explained about the debts that had accumulated, partly due to Stella's excessive spending. In turn, she promised to change her habits and get more involved in the family's finances. "I don't want you to carry this weight alone," Stella said, holding her husband's hands. "We are a team, remember? For better or for worse." In the days that followed, both of them worked hard to rebuild trust in their relationship. Stella began to accompany Benjamin on some of his trips to the warehouse, helping wherever she could. Together, they came up with a plan to pay off debts and reorganize the family's finances. The changes did not go unnoticed by Jade. The teenager watched happily as her parents seemed more united and smiling. Family meals, once silent and tense, were now moments of lively conversation and planning for the future. A few weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, the family decided to have a picnic in the city park. As they were spreading the blanket on the grass, Benjamin surprised everyone with an announcement. "I have some news," he said, smiling. "I talked to my boss at the office. He was impressed with my dedication to the second job and offered me a promotion. With the new salary, I won't need to work at the warehouse anymore." Stella and Jade celebrated, hugging him tightly. As she watched her husband and daughter talking further ahead on the lawn, Stella reflected on how that crisis had almost destroyed her marriage, but ended up strengthening it. She realized that true love is not only in the grand romantic gestures, but also in mutual understanding, daily patience, and the willingness to face challenges side by side. Benjamin and Stella had rediscovered this, and now they walked together towards a brighter and more united future. That night, lying side by side in bed, Stella held Benjamin's hand and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." He smiled, gently squeezing her fingers. "I always knew it was worth fighting for our family." And so, under the gentle glow of the moonlight streaming through the window, the couple fell asleep, no longer as two people divided by secrets and misunderstandings, but as true partners, ready to face any challenge life might present them. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.